All right, it's Friday morning, time for another entry into the echoes of fear. I am your co-host, Jason Hewlett, along with Kenton J. Moore, reporting live from an ensuite bathroom, apparently the only quiet part of his house on this
Oh,
cold morning. Could you
Kent,
elaborate on that, please, Kenton?
Kenton needs a studio. So, listeners out there, if you're following us on social media, which I'm sure you are, and most of you may be following me on more than just my Facebook, this is what Patreon is all about, man. Like, help fund Kenton to build a bloody place for to do these things. So, as Jason was mentioning, it's now winter here in the mountains, and we have a rather large house heated by a wood pellet furnace that's quite loud. So, where I normally record these episodes from was inhospitable, to say the least. So, I tried a different location only to be foiled yet again in my plans by a cockatiel that screams at trains when they go by. So the only quiet house, or only quiet spot I could find in the house is my parents' ensuite bathroom, which is literally the opposite end of the entire building from anything that's causing me grief. So that's what you get to deal with today. I am recording this from a toilet. I have my pants on, I promise. I had to promise Jason twice and prove it. So for the
And no one's
listeners
going to
out there.
interrupt in need of the toilet. There's other facilities available to them if necessary.
Yes, absolutely. We're fortunate to have three bathrooms in this house. So
Perfect. All right. Well, we're not talking about fear of toilets or fear of bathrooms on this episode, although now I think we're going to have to at some point.
or fear of
We're
noise for that matter.
right, or noise, or cockatiels, or all sorts of wood pellet stoves.
Fear of failure. That might be a
Fear of
fun one.
failure. I know I struggle with that one on an almost daily basis. So
Yeah, I think that's going to be our close for this season,
yeah,
honestly. I think
fear of
that's a good one for
failure,
both of us. Yeah.
abject failure. We're talking aliens of all things this week.
Ooh, the great unknown. Fear of
Yeah.
aliens. Yes.
So,
Yes,
I
yes.
know Kenton did a number of research. We're gonna have no trouble with the pop culture component of this, or actually, I think any component, because
No.
especially with the U.S. congressional hearings that have been going on, it's no longer a question of are there
Hmm.
this, but now it's like, well, what are they, and why do they keep coming here,
And how long have they
and
been
how
here?
long before the big mothership shows up and blows up the White House? Like
Oh, there's your pop culture reference right there.
right out
Yeah,
the
so
gate.
this is an interesting one, Jason. Like, did you know or are you aware that of all of the phobias that we've talked about and done, fear of aliens is one of the most common. However, it's one of the only phobias that doesn't actually have its own name.
What?
Yeah. So I'm sure, as you might be aware, and most of everybody else is probably aware, there's a term that's thrown around quite often, xenophobia,
Yeah.
right? Xeno being the word for alien, phobia being the word for severe and irrational fear. But did you know that alien in this terms and the true definition of the word never had anything to do with creatures from space? Xenophobia actually means the fear of foreigners, unfamiliar, or from another culture or world.
So like basically like yeah, someone coming like immigrants basically.
Yeah,
It's just basically the
yeah,
immigrants.
yeah. Racists.
Racists.
Xenophobia. Yeah, so xenophobia actually means in dictionary definition, it means the fear of the alien or the strange, which in pop culture it's commonly been used to refer to aliens like space aliens and stuff like that, but more recently, especially in the real world news, cough cough, south of the border, cough cough, xenophobia specifically means the fear of immigrants.
That's really interesting. And I mean, I knew that, but the fact that it doesn't apply to the actual beings from another world or another dimension, I think is fascinating to me. Um, because if it's one of the most common fears, especially I think people are more and more ramped up about those from above than
Hmm.
now than ever
Yeah.
before. Um, Yeah, the fact that it hasn't been officially acknowledged, they haven't changed the dictionary meaning yet, I find is really intriguing.
Yeah, and it's cool too because the when I got into this one and I started deep diving into it and stuff like that, the drive, like following our seek to understand for this year, going down that rabbit hole or this season, I should say. The drive of this phobia is fascinating, and we'll get into that in a sec. But while we're on the subject of the name, I did come across a couple things like some people are proposing alienophobia now. I don't like the way that word
Terrible. It
sounds.
doesn't roll off the tongue at all.
It doesn't roll off the tongue at all, and it's ridiculous because if you've already got xenophobia, which means fear of aliens, and then you go alienophobia, that's just like it's not working. It's not picking up.
It's weak,
So it's
very
weak,
weak.
yeah, and it's therefore it's not recognized as a scientific term. But there are some other related phobias, like there's astrophobia, which is the fear of space. Like the fear of what's out there, the fear of the unknown, gravitational anomalies, all that, BS, the things that can kill you in that
Black
inhospitable
holes.
environment. Yeah, black
Yeah.
holes, yeah. Um, and that leads into a very common and well-known phobia that's a little bit more encompassing that's called existential anxiety. And that is the fear of all the things we don't know. That's like Cthulhu monsters and elder gods and the abyss and what happens after we die. All those kind of things fall under existential anxiety, right? Which is sort of a blanket term, but
It's like that existential dread about your existence or your place in it or the lack thereof. You
right,
like
exactly. Yeah, like look up at the night sky when you're far away from light pollution, and you'll feel existential anxiety. I don't care who you are, everybody has done that. For me personally, the biggest moment of that anxiety in my life was in the Navy. Sailing out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and going out for a cigarette at like, 10 o'clock at night with my friend. And there is no, other than space itself, I'm pretty sure there's no way to get further away from light pollution than that. And the stars in the sky, like, talk about feeling inconsequential. Just this overwhelming fear of how minuscule our existence actually is in the grand scheme.
mine too hit me on the ocean, but I was scuba diving off a seashell and I went to the max depth for a new sport diver, which was 100 meters. And I looked straight down into black and I looked straight up and you could barely see the light. And same in either direction. It's just like, wow.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Like
screwed if
you,
something happens to me.
yeah, right? Like you were in the middle of nothing,
Yeah,
just
just
nothing.
floating in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And that's where I think I like that saying, when you stare into the abyss stares back into you, because it is true. If you look into that kind of nothingness, like you described, like I described, and when it looks back at you, it's not like a thing. You're not personifying what's looking back at you. It's just this feeling that you grow. There's just this, I don't know, it's hard to explain, existential anxiety.
Yeah, existential anxiety. I almost feel my panic level rising just talking about it.
Yeah, right. It's crazy how that stuff works. But yeah, so like getting back to we're not talking about the fear of existentialism. We're talking about the fear of aliens specifically. And I mentioned that it was really cool in the deep dive about finding some of the history. And like, did you believe 30%? 30% of people on the face of this planet believe that UFOs are real.
That doesn't surprise. There's a recent UBC study that tied into all paranormal phenomena, and I think they came up with that 40% believe in paranormal phenomenon in Canada
Mhm.
alone. So the fact that 30% of them are behind aliens,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And like most of that is driven by curiosity and interest. So a lot of it doesn't really have to do with phobia or fear of it. But I think that, like the phobia or fear of that aliens could be real is just something a lot of people don't talk about because they don't want to talk about it. And let's be honest, like you mentioned at the beginning of this episode when we talked about our premise, pop culture has really driven that down our throat that aliens are not going to be our friends, except for Star Trek.
Well, and that's about the only one. And I remember back in like the 60s, during the free love and hippy dippy era, there was a lot of alleged alien encounters where the aliens were here to point out our flaws or prevent us from destroying ourselves, etc. But once you hit the 1970s and the Vietnam era, and the rise in crime or perceived rise in crime rate because of Miranda laws,
Hmm.
movies started to reflect that anxiety outward. I mean, there was like the slasher movies, but then you
Right,
had the movie Alien, which was
right.
like basically a haunted house monster movie in space. And I think
Yeah.
that really, and after that, aliens were never like, there's The Thing, there was just tons of movies where the aliens were not our friends. And I think that's still the prevailing thought process, at least in pop culture. But
Did you find it's interesting that you mentioned those two first? Like, so when you think of the xenomorphs, again, there's the xeno, right?
Mhm.
The xenomorphs from the Alien franchise, and then you compare them with the thing like the Thing, and those types of aliens. Do you find that there's like two or three different types of aliens? Like, there's the type of aliens where we're nothing to them, we're just prey,
Yeah,
right? And that's like what the xenomorphs and the Thing. They're just here to prey on us, right?
Predator,
And then
same
there,
thing.
Predator, same thing, yeah, and the list goes on and on and on. But then there's also that other type of alien that's painted as a antagonist, and those are the ones that are here to like dominate us or destroy us or seize what's ours. Like you've got the aliens from Independence Day.
Yeah.
You've got
Battle Los Angeles is another one,
yeah, Battle Los Angeles,
Skyline.
Future War, Skyline, yeah, like all these other ones. So you're starting to see a theme here, right? Do
Hmm.
you do you do you see the theme here? And do you know what that is? What that's driven by is the going back to xenophobia being a fear of like immigrants or foreign cultures and stuff. It's driven by humanity's like in this genetic internal fear that we all have that anything we encounter is going to be a mirror of our worst behaviors.
Yes, definitely, right?
Yeah, they this fear that these alien species, when they come here, are going to reflect our own behavior in a negative way. But with technology and abilities so far beyond our understanding or capability, that we're just going to be dominated, right? And that's driven by our own human history of experiences like invasion, atrocities against one another based on differences of skin and culture, religion, being dominated by an invading force that has technology, skills, or knowledge beyond our own. Like, look at the Romans, expansionism, the British
Oh,
Empire,
British. I
right?
was just going to say the British Empire. Columbus coming to North America, well, South
Right?
America. You know what I mean? Like,
So,
it's
so what I find interesting about that is when you look at the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and even up into the early 2000s, a lot of the pop culture aliens that we were experiencing were one of those things, right? They're here to dominate us or to steal what's ours or to use us as prey or entertainment or whatever. But now, in our current modern world, the entertainment that we're seeing now, I'm finding, and please back me up on this or disagree, but I'm finding that their influence is a lot more subtle. Hey, like a lot more of these new things that you've got now. It's like the um the day that the Earth stood still. You
Mhm.
know, they're like you said, they're here to point things out. They're here to guide us, to shape us. And I think that in a way, that's even more insidious. And I think it speaks more to like the global geopolitical one new world order movement and all these kind of conspiracy theories that are driven by, subtle manipulation as opposed to outright forceful takeover.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched the series yet. My wife watches it, Invasion on Apple, and it sounds like there's a bit of both in that kind of thing. Like the first season's them coming and it looks like we beat them, but then the second season is they come back and they're doing, things just shift and change. I think that's just our fears play out on screen or in books or whatever as they evolve through time, and they were always reflective of
Mhm.
what's going on in the world around us. Like horror came back in a huge way with the global pandemic.
Right. Yeah.
And it still is big. You know what I mean? Like it's been bigger almost than it's ever been. And I
That fear
think
of
we
being
see that with,
trapped.
yeah, right? Because you feel trapped, you feel isolated, like things are out of your control. And I think the xenophobia very much plays into that exact same fear.
Big time. Big
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I mean I'm thinking about things like X-Files. I watch Resident Alien, and even though that's a comedy, it has some very deep
Hmm.
undertones. A lot of commentary, where they talk about these more insidious types of aliens that plant themselves in our society and guide us along a la Illuminati style, like the Greys, right?
Yeah. They Live is a prime
Yeah,
example of it.
prime
It's probably one
example.
of the
Yeah,
best. And it's just more relevant, even having watched it earlier this year. It's more relevant today than it was in the 80s, even. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, it's crazy how accurate and how Carpenter was so ahead of his time. Well, he made a movie that's timeless in my mind with that one.
Oh, for sure. I can't hear anybody mention the name of that movie without thinking of I'm here to
Here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
go and kick ass and I'm all out about and it's really interesting, all this stuff. And like we could go on and on and on and we could talk about all of the movies that feature aliens and stuff, but that's the takeaway here. That's the thing to really think about is why are we so afraid of these cultures or creatures from outer space just because we lack the ability to understand ourselves, and we still lack that ability to appreciate one another for the diversity of culture that we have in the world. And, like the moment you get some exterior enemy, it's almost like a unifying force. You remember Independence Day? I mean, I hate the fact that it was all led by the United States and they saved everybody because they always do, right? But the one thing I liked about that movie was that the moment some creature came from somewhere else and it was bent on destroying our way of life, all of a sudden everybody forgot all their differences and we were just like, yeah. And that's the commentary about all of this that goes right to the bottom of it, is that the fear of aliens is the fear that we can't exist without an enemy to fight.
Oh, and that was the same thing with Star Trek, right? The fact that we got warp drive, and when we discovered there's other creatures out there, we united to expand and explore the galaxy, and that's when the Vulcans came and gave us warp drive. You know what I mean? It was all that. That has always been in that kind of alien sci-fi, the underlying theme behind it. I think it's just become more on the nose now because I don't know if we've gotten stupider or we just need to be reminded better, or you know what I mean? But I think that again is reflective of the world we live in,
Yeah. Well, I think,
right?
like I mean, I could get into some really deep philosophy here on the human condition. And I mean, I'm an author and I live and breathe studying mythology and human storytelling and all this kind of stuff. So trust me, I have a lot of personal philosophies of this nature. But I won't. But the one thing that I will say is that, like when people always ask me what I believe are the future of the human race is, I think that there's one of three things are going to happen, right? Either A, we're going to finally get to that point where we have almost wiped ourselves out and we're like, maybe then we'll wake up and realize how stupid we are and how much we could accomplish if we only just work together, right? And then we'll get the Star Trek future, right?
Hmm.
Or we're going to completely wipe ourselves out and make our planet almost inhospitable and end up with the Mad Max future, right? Or we just keep going like we're going and just keep running around the same freaking hamster wheel, where we create a war, we do amazing things, people get used to it and get lazy and start finding stupid things to fight over because we crave conflict. So
Yeah.
we have to have it in our society. Then we become so weak that we're fighting over the pettiest things, like who's putting a pink flamingo on their front lawn. And then we get back into another war. And then we get better. So those are the three choices. We stay on this hamster wheel, we destroy ourselves, or we figure our shit out and get out there into the stars.
And I think being a cynic from my
Yeah.
journalism days, I think we're going to
Oh
be on
yeah.
this hamster wheel for a very, very, very long. We've been on it forever. I think
Yeah.
that's just our fate. As much as I would love either the Mad Max or the Star Trek. I'm okay with either. I think we're
Well,
going to be on the hamster wheel.
yeah, with every gray hair that grows in on my head, Jason, I am right there with you. You know, like that dream of a unified utopian society, a la Star Trek, where everyone has what they need, and we're just learning and growing, and we worship knowledge. I mean, that's the central theme in my Cloudbreaker stories, right? For my main
Mhm.
characters, but war is always a part of it because we're just stupid. You know,
Yep.
and the older I get, the more cynical I get too. And I know that we're so driven by fear, you know, like it's right here in our own backyard when you have a new family moving into a neighborhood that's from a different culture like Japanese, Chinese, East Indian, Filipino, you know what I mean? Like the first thing that one out of every five neighbors is going to actually go over there and try to learn a little bit more about them. The other four are going to be like, there goes the neighborhood.
Yep.
You know,
There was
you
a
see it every day.
it's a different series, but there's that new TV series, It, Welcome to Derry, which is the prequel to It, the Stephen King
Oh,
story It. But it's a lot of it because it takes place during the 60s is about the racism against black people moving into a small American town. Like that's kind of almost the underlying theme about it, which again is the xenophobia coming in to
yeah.
play within this horror story. And yeah, we see that now. Like I admit I'm even shocked for the first time in the whole time I've lived in where I live now in 17 years, there's like an East Indian family down the block.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's you're just like, holy crap, like that's a first, and it's not
Yeah, I've never seen that before. Yeah.
right.
You know, well, I mean, I can't say that I've never seen. I used to live in Clearwater during the Weyerhaeuser boom, and so
Oh, of
there's
course.
like a whole subdivision up there and stuff. And I mean, again, right? You know, like I'm fascinated by culture. I wish I could just walk up to a Sikh person and sit down and learn their myths and learn their tales. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I was able to grow up with First Nations, so I was able to learn so much of their culture and all that kind of stuff. But I'm one of those unique people that's obsessed by and driven by knowledge. So I don't care where it comes from. I just want it.
Yeah,
I want to dig it. I want to explore it, which is where a lot of people are fascinated by this idea of aliens in space. Is it's that space and the ocean is our last chance for human exploration.
yeah. And we've failed miserably at both because we've
Yeah.
been so distracted by everything else.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we will get there. I hope, there's plans to keep space expansion. Aren't they supposed to be going to Mars in the next few years? Um, we'll see what happens, and we'll see what
Yeah.
happens when they get out there
Yeah,
and what they
exactly.
find.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's not going to be like that bacteria organism from Life. That was one of the movies that just, ugh, yeah.
Oh, I know. Or what was the other one? It was one of the Mars movies, Mission to Mars or something, where things went horribly wrong when they got there because there was
Well,
other.
those. Do you know? Sorry, segue for a second there, but the Martian movies, of all of the Martian movies, my actual favorite was Red Planet. You remember that one
Yeah, I
with
remember
Val
that one. That was the
Kilmer?
one where I think they found things just went wrong when they got there. It wasn't so much there was an outside force. Was that the one, or was it?
Well, it started off as a things just went wrong, but it was an outside force. But the problem was, is they brought it with them. It wasn't the planet itself. It was that damn military robot that they brought with them. That when they
Right.
crashed, it reset its AI and became a combat robot and started hunting them on
That's right.
Mars, right? And I mean, like I think it was Red Planet was that one where it was more just being trapped on a foreign planet with a human killer robot chasing you. I think that's funny when we take our own bad shit to other planets and it causes a problem. That always makes me laugh. Cough, cough, Avatar, cough, cough. Um,
And it will always be, I think, our downfall in reality is we will
for
bring the problem
sure.
there other than it being there waiting for us.
Yeah, for sure. You know, like back in 2000, when I was first getting really into writing, it was just shortly after I graduated high school. And I was at this film group called Cinevic, and I met this guy named Chris Meyer. He's now in Australia and stuff, but him and I started talking about writing a TV series together. It's back in the days of like X-Files and, Outer Limits and all that. And we were calling our series Eden. And the premise was that mankind reached the stars, but guess what? We're the bad guy, right?
Hmm.
We find planets, we just take them for what we need, rape them for the resources, et cetera, et cetera. And our whole idea was they discovered this planet called Eden that had a material on it. Stop me if you've heard this one, that was extremely valuable because it could amplify energy that you put into it. So our needs were like met by this material. Oh no, the planet's inhabited by sentient species. They were sort of like alien elfin Vulcan slash Legolas,
Hmm.
had abilities because their evolution had allowed them to connect with this web. But anyways, the story goes on and on. And fast forward like 12 years, we never pitched it. And I get this message from Chris Meyer, and he's like, "Hey man, have you seen the preview for James Cameron's new movie Avatar, or Edentar as I'm going to call it from now on?" And I was like, "Oh shit." Now, I'm not saying that my idea was taken by James Cameron. I would never say that. But it was just funny that we developed something so similar like 12 years before.
Which I think speaks to a knowing within us as creators. That is a logical story to follow because we've
Mhm.
watched it. It's the exact same. It's xenophobia in reverse, where we're the
Yeah.
alien going and causing
Yeah,
the trouble, right?
yeah, exactly. It's watching movies like Independence Day and Predator and Aliens where it's like, and then flipping the script and being like, what if we were that force that showed up
Yeah.
and did that, right? Like District 9 did it a little bit with Blomkamp, when
Yep.
with I love that movie, by the way. I wish there was a sequel. But they were just refugees. They
Yep.
weren't here to hurt or kill us. They were running from something, probably worse,
Same
you
with
know.
Alien Nation, the movie, and then subsequent TV series. Same idea. They were refugees from space that crashed, and we tried integrating them, and things,
Yeah,
they brought their
yeah.
own stuff to cause trouble on our planet, and we were bad to that. It was very much topical story and right in line with everything we've talked about on this episode, actually.
Oh yeah, so this phobia is everywhere when it comes to pop culture, and it goes even beyond just the fear of aliens. I mean, you could look at any movie where it's following the same timeline, the same theme, but with human invasion, like 300 with the
Hmm.
the you know, it goes on and on and on. But I can't help but think the more I did my research today when I was reading into this. I kept hearing in the back of my mind as a collector, an avid collector of X-Men comics when I was a kid, you know, the world hates and fears what we don't understand. That's the primary theme in the X-Men universe, the X-Men comics. And we're seeing it now playing out with like LGBTQ plus. Excuse me if I get that acronym wrong. I do apologize. But we're seeing it with all that kind of stuff as well as any cultural difference that's not your own is something that you need to hate and fear. And that drives this phobia. That is the core of xenophobia. We just project it onto some species that's coming from outer space, and they're going to be three-body problem and take us all over.
Right? No, and that's kind of why I'm really glad we touched on this subject, because not only does it play into like the spooky outer spacey guys, but it very much touches into a part of our human condition, who we are as a species and as individuals, right? Some of us more so than others. Like, like some people have more of that xenophobia than the others, but I think we all have it to some degree,
Hmm.
you know, each and
Yeah.
every one of us in some way.
Yeah, and that's why it was such a fascinating thing. Like when you proposed to me there the other day, and you said, "Well, let's try doing a xenophobia episode," and I was like, I had never really thought about it yet. Like I was still leaning into the spooky season, October, fall stuff with like witches and curses and demons, and then I was like, oh yeah, let's take a different way here. And the further I got into it, the more philosophical I discovered it was. I started to realize how fascinating of a discussion this was going to be.
And it was, and it has been, as I knew it
Absolutely.
would, which
Yeah.
means we're wrapping up for now, but we're going to be back next Friday with a whole new fear to explore. And we're not
More
sure what that is yet.
phobia.
Right? What was it that Pennywise always says? Tasty, tasty fear. Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. I am the eater of worlds.
Until then, folks, I'm Jason Hewlett,
And I'm Kenton J. Moore.
reporting live from his parents' ensuite bathroom. Next week, probably not. Anyways, have a good week, folks. Good week, folks. We'll see you next week with more fear.